Hey, Who fans, welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 402.
Yeah!
Welcome back, everybody, to another week and another episode of the Big Blue Box. We hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related.
Oh. I was going for a bit of a Shirley Bassey there, mate. Doctor Who related.
You see,
couldn't quite read. Couldn't reach the notes. Haven't got the range.
It's things like that that make you lose most of the time.
I'm a loser, baby.
I win another week of that game, but yeah.
Enjoy that win.
Indeedy, I will. So, new Doctor Who fans, new listeners to the Big Blue Box, welcome aboard. The Grizzled Ancients, all the old, the long-time fans, welcome to 402. And I hope you enjoyed the penultimate episode of Season 1, which was The Legend of Ruby Sunday, which is our review episode for this week. Got some interesting thoughts on this one, as really the whole season's been interesting, hasn't it? Every week, apart from 1 week when I text Adam to say, really not happy with that.
There was 1 week he broke protocol, listeners. We don't normally give our thoughts away. And I was quite shocked that this text came through saying, dude, not happy. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that was what.
I wonder if our listeners can guess which episode it was.
Yeah, there was 1 week where just wasn't happy at all with that episode, and but otherwise every week it's like, what do you reckon, mate? And it's a bit of a surprise. So we try our best to not give our views too much on socials and stuff like that. So this week is no exception. There's a few interesting tidbits in this episode that we need to talk through. But before we get on to all that, how have you been, bud? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good, actually, mate. Yeah, the sun is shining here in the UK, which is always nice to see, as it's a bit of a rarity. We have to make the most of it when we do get it. So yeah, it's been a good week. I've done a couple of little things Doctor Who related. Well, sort of one really, but I started watching the Celestial Toymaker animation last night. You know, the new DVD that's been released. Because I held off getting it for a while because I wasn't too sure about the style of it, the screenshots that we'd seen from it. I was like, I don't know, this doesn't look... But I don't know, I've sort of been so curious to actually see it after all the talk and, drama surrounding it. I just thought, I'm just going to get it and watch it. And I watched the first 2 episodes last night, and it's very different from what we've had before. And I think a lot of people that have got a problem with it is because it's so far removed from what was actually on the screen in the original episode. Where in the original 60s episode it was a blank set, they've made all the sets really colourful and it's almost cartoonish and stuff. But I've got to be honest, mate, I watched the first 2 and I watched them in colour because, again, it's so far removed from what we would have been that it makes, I'm not going to be like a purist, must watch it in black and white, because it's so different to what was made. I actually really enjoyed the first 2. I actually thought the animation, once you get used to it, is I found it a lot more watchable than some of the more recent ones we've had. Let's put it that way, because some of the sort of 1D stick characters that we've had in the last couple of releases, I found them a real chore to get through. Whereas this one, although it still feels a bit basic and you feel like it's not quite finished. I know the team were really rushed to get this made, and so they probably would have loved to have spent more time on it. For them, I actually really enjoyed it, mate, and I could definitely watch this over a lot of the other ones. The story itself's a bit hard going as well, which doesn't help. It's quite, it's quite a slow story once we get past the initial first episode. But yeah, I'm actually quite enjoying this so far, and I just thought I'd break it up a little bit because I wanted to watch one of the extras on it, which is a new set of features, which I think is going to be an ongoing thing. So I don't know if you know about this, mate, because you haven't bought this DVD yet, have you?
No.
You haven't got this one. So one of the special features on this is they put some of the actors from Doctor Who in a Doctor Who escape room. And so in this one, it's Peter Purves, Maureen O'Brien, and Lisa Boutman. And they've got Emily Cook sort of presenting it. And they put them in the escape room, and it's sort of full of all Doctor Who quiz, games that they have to play to sort of get through to the next room and stuff. And it's about an hour long. So I thought it was just going to be like a little tiny 20-minute feature. So I ended up watching this till about 12:30 last night. Because a lot of people said they haven't really enjoyed it. I've seen a lot of people say, I switched that off after 5 minutes. And I really liked it. I thought it was a great new feature. And they were getting quite tetchy. Like Peter Purves was getting so cross that they wouldn't let him do the games. He's like, no, step up, let me do it, and all this sort of thing. And Maureen O'Brien was like, I can't hear anything K9's saying, I'm not doing this. And I thought it was really entertaining. And without spoiling too much, there's some nice Easter eggs in that escape room and stuff. And I thought it was great. But this is going to be a thing, I believe, because in the sort of intro to it, there's sort of lots of other actors from Doctor Who. So they're going to do one for each Doctor, I guess, or something, because, you had Peter Davison and Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton doing one in the intro and stuff like that. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing more of these.
That sounds pretty cool. Those escape rooms
I liked
always,
it, mate.
They're always cool anyway. But then if you throw in some older Who actors, it sounds like a good laugh to watch anyway.
Well, also, you spot things that they don't. So, I guess those people that sort of have said, I switched it off after 5 minutes. I must admit, when it starts, you are a bit like, how is this going to work? And it does take you a bit of getting into it. I will admit, I was sort of, for the first 5 minutes myself, I was a bit like, what's going on here? But then when you do get into it, it is a bit like watching an episode of Crystal Maze or something, where you're actually, you spot things. No, you need to put you need to go over there. The clue's over there. That door's just open behind you. Look behind you. I found myself getting quite engrossed in it, because there's one bit where the clue comes up on a great big TV screen behind them, and not one of them notices. They're all looking around going, has anything happened? And Emily Cook's watching them on a screen going, turn around, look behind you. Great big screen showing a clip of Doctor Who. So I really enjoyed that, mate. I was quite glad I've bought the DVD now, because it's definitely got a mixed response, and I held off. I thought, I don't know if I might wait till it's on the collection box set or something like that, But I quite enjoyed watching that last night, and I'm going to watch parts 3 and 4 tonight just to sort of finish it up. So I reckon it might be worth a pick up, mate. I know you've held off, the same as I was a bit hesitant. I know you've held off on this one, but you kind of like Crystal Maze and stuff like that in Escape Room, so I reckon you might enjoy that extra feature as well.
Yeah, no, I love the Crystal Maze. I've done the Crystal Maze.
You've done it?
Not on TV, obviously, but just the work outing sort of thing. But no, I love that stuff, so I will pick it up, mate. I'll just wait for it to come on sale, dude. I'm not wait for it to drop down a bit.
Yeah, I get you. I think that's what I was thinking. Because I totally get what you mean.
Yeah,
wait for the sale.
And talking of watching Doctor Who stuff, have you watched the new Tales of the TARDIS thing? It's the Pyramid of Mars themed. Have you watched that yet?
Well, no, because as of recording, it hasn't dropped yet. It's tonight. So we're recording this Thursday morning. Yeah. You're doing a Russell, because Russell... Russell announced yesterday across Instagram, his favourite medium of social media, that he was like, it's tonight, everybody, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was like, I thought it was Thursday. And people were rushing to see. And no, it is Thursday.
Right.
So you and Russell you're obviously a day ahead. Yeah. But I will be watching it. And I'm actually very excited for it, mate, because apparently not only is it going to have Ncuti and Millie, the Doctor and Ruby, in the memory TARDIS, it's going to be a condensed version of Pyramids of Mars, but with new special effects and stuff like that. And so it is going to be quite interesting, I think, to have a new intro with the Doctor and Ruby, to see Pyramids of Mars condensed with special effects and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, and Gabriel Wolf is in it again. He's in the He's in the finale at the end as well, back as Sutek, 48 years after his performances. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just love that. I love they've got Gabriel Wolf back. I think that's absolutely awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
I jumped the gun.
Are you going to be watching tonight, mate?
I will be, yeah. Defo. And I jumped the gun, so apologies for that. I honestly thought it was last night it dropped. But anyway, I'll try and get this episode out today, which is the 20th of June, which is launch day. So it's out at 8 p.m. on BBC 4 here in the UK, and then on the iPlayer. Do these go out on Disney? They do, don't they? Do they go out on Disney Plus as well, these things? I can't remember.
No, I don't think they do.
Right.
I don't think they do, because I saw a lot of people moaning about that. I mean, I could be wrong. Our listeners can let me know, but I believe that's one of the things that people have been a bit miffed about, is that it's only on, like the BBC and stuff. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you've got access to iPlayer somewhere internationally, then you'll be able to watch this. But for UK fans, if you're listening to today on launch day or whatever, then it's out tonight. Otherwise, it was out timey-wimey, whatever day previously to, when you're listening to this. So that sounds very cool. So we'll check that out. There's no other news to speak of, really, as is the case most weeks when there is new Doctor Who rolling out. It's a bit quiet. No big announcements or anything. I think the only thing that people are searching for and trying to get some info on is if season 3 has indeed been okayed or commissioned yet. So there's a lot of chat about that stuff. We've had a couple of blogs and a couple of other podcasts kind of put their thoughts on it and try to give an unofficial, yep, it's definitely happening. So my view on it probably is. It probably is happening, but there's just nothing official yet from the Beeb or from Russell. So I imagine he'll announce that probably shortly after season 1's wrapped up, because we know that he's working on it and they're in some pre-production stuff for it. So it probably is. It's just, you know how TV works, dude. It's just one of those things where you have to wait for the green light before you can say anything. So, but it probably is. I can't see them cancelling it already. So, yep.
Now, I wonder if they're going to perhaps announce it after season 1 is finished. You know what I mean? Get season 1 wrapped up. I assume we'll get a big trailer for series 2. Oh no, hang on. It'll be the Christmas special first, won't it? I just sort of thinking, because they've already finished recording season 2, they've probably got trailers ready to go. So I'm just wondering what we'll get at the end of this week's episode, to carry us over to the next episode or series. But I think it's still a little bit too early to sort of for them to officially announce it, but I reckon it'll be soon. I got a feeling in the next couple of weeks Russell will say it's been greenlit. That's what I'm expecting.
Yep. Same.
He's busy beavering away writing it, isn't he? So, and
he doesn't work for free, so
no.
One would assume that he's doing his thing with season 3. So in the next couple of weeks it will probably be announced, or maybe, I don't know, it's all up in the air. But anyway, some people reckon it's a done deal. So we'll keep you updated though. Whenever we hear about that, we'll let you guys know. And that's that. So, as I said, no real news, nothing really to dive into. So we will crash into our review of The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Before we get to our review, though, just a quick reminder to make sure that you are following or subscribing to the podcast on whatever app you listen to your podcasts on. Just do a search for the Big Blue Box, as you won't miss an episode when they land every Thursday, Friday-ish, depending on how quick we get the reviews out. And then we have a monthly roundtable episode as well, which is really cool, where we draft in all of the writers and we just have a big old chinwag about Doctor Who, and that goes out once a month. And you can also listen over on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. All the episodes are there, plus you can check out all of the reviews and articles and all that good stuff from the writers over there. We're on the socials too. There are links on the website. Come and chat Doctor Who with us as we natter about all that stuff in between episodes and just generally, so get involved. And we have a very cool free Discord server as well. There's a link on the website. Hop in there and chat Doctor Who with lots of other very cool Who fans. And as always, don't forget to remember to go and check out my co-host channel on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
I so want a t-shirt with that on. Don't forget to remember. And then on the back, The Geek's Handbag. Go check out my YouTube channel. Lots of Doctor Who products, reviews and unboxings and location visits and convention reports and goodness knows what else. Go and have a look. It's all on there. The Geek's Handbag.
Go and have a nosy. Yes. Alrighty, dude. Let's get into the first of the two-part finale for the end of Season 1, The Legend of Ruby Sunday. It was broadcast on the 15th of June last week, and it was written by Russell T. Davies, directed by Jamie Donahue. It stars Shooty and Minnie Gibson, and a fairly substantial cast of supporting actors in this one, and the synopsis is: the same woman keeps appearing in The Doctor and Ruby's adventures. UNIT knows her as Susan Triad, head of S Triad Technology. Could she be the Doctor's long-lost granddaughter? And who is Ruby's mysterious mother? As UNIT investigates both angles, an ancient evil stirs. Stirs indeed. So, dude, your thoughts out the gate on this one then?
Out the gate, mate. Well, I watched this at midnight. I stayed up for this one. Felt like I kind of had to because I was quite excited for the for this final. Having said that, I must admit my expectations, were lowered just because this season's been a bit mixed. So I didn't go into it thinking it was going to be anything amazing, but I was still excited to see this. And I absolutely loved it, mate. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was a cracking first episode to the finale. I appreciate that there wasn't a lot of actual storyline. It is an episode of build up, but I didn't mind that. It absolutely worked for me. It had me on the edge of my seat, especially the last 10 minutes. I was really engrossed, thinking, whoa, what's going on? It turned almost like a proper horror film in those last 5 minutes, when Susan Twist started contorting and shaking her head, and the voice of, spoilers, of course, Sutek coming through, and I thought it was cracking, mate. It really did the job. It really did what I wanted it to do. And I'll be honest, it felt like an old school episode of RTD. It was classic RTD. It had all the funny lines. It had all the serious moments. It had all the build up. It had all the RTD tropes, but in a good way for me. I just thought this could have fitted in Russell's first season. This is absolutely, this is what I expect from Russell. I just wish we'd got more like this series, because this has absolutely left me wanting more. I did wonder how it would hold up on a second viewing, because it is an episode of build up, and I thought when I rewatched this before we record, will it have that same buzz? Because I know what's coming the second time, and I know we don't get answers to this, but but I have to say I watched it again yesterday just to make some notes, and I still thoroughly enjoyed this. Thoroughly enjoyed it. The other week when Rogue went out, I was surprised by the positivity that episode received, because I didn't think it was that great. Almost the opposite with this one, mate. When this ended, I went online and looked at Twitter, and the reaction was really mixed, and I thought, wow, I thought people would be going mad over this. And I listened to a couple of my regular podcasts the following morning, and they were very mixed as well, and not necessarily negative, but it wasn't the sort of flow of positivity that I was expecting. And so I'm a little bit, I don't totally get what people are saying in some respects, especially on the podcast. I think they've given some very balanced reviews where, they pointed out that it was almost felt a bit shallow, a bit hollow, and I see what they mean. There's no major storyline going on here, but for me personally, I really enjoyed it, mate. It just gave me the feels in lots of different ways. It gave me lots of different emotions of laughing 1 minute, being excited the next, and being almost, and I've never really been one for hiding behind the sofa, mate, as much as Doctor Who likes to tell us that we do. But the ending to this one, I was like, whoa, this is pretty creepy stuff. It gave me everything I wanted from an episode of Doctor Who, and especially one that's part one of the season final. So huge thumbs up from me, mate. I really liked it.
A thumbs up. Good.
Yeah.
Good times. What did I think?
What did you think? I'm waiting with bated breath. What did you think?
I thought that this one was the best of the season by far. By a long shot.
Far.
Yeah. In fact, this could have been episode 1. Almost.
Oh, would have been good.
This could have been, if you think about it, this could have been, you could have like mixed some stuff around with Ruby's mum, but you could have had the setup. You could have had the episode 1 of this season could have been this, really. And then the rest of the episode is, how do we take down Sutek? How do we take down, because Sutek's back and then he's unleashed Maestro and these other gods and stuff. How do we deal with them at the same time? Who's Ruby's mum? So, it could have been but then that would have been very Moffat. I know what I'm saying is a bit like, with these big arcs and stuff. But anyway, I thought, I thought it was a really good, solid. It felt like sort of old school Russell T Davies to me. This felt. I said to my wife after we watched it, I said that could have easily been a David Tennant or a Chris Eccleston story. That one, you could see that kind of vibe about it. And so, as much as I thought it was a great story, I also think it's very, very frustrating to me as well, because some of the other episodes that we've reviewed early on in the season, which were written by Russell, you think, where was this kind of feeling and this kind of, just overall feel from an episode that we know Russell can be very good at. Some of those early ones, it's like, why couldn't they have been, of this standard? And I get why this was, there are certain elements that make this elevate it above some of the other episodes as well. I get that because it's part of the finale, which is always a big deal-ish anyway. And also you've got a very, very, very cool classic monster coming back as well. So, I get that there's some other bits in this that make it a much larger episode for that. But an absolutely cracking episode. And I do agree with what some other podcasters have said about it as well, in that in terms of story depth, there's not a great deal to it. It's a very, very big build-up episode. Almost just a giant setup for the actual finale next week. What's that? Empire of Death, isn't it? That's called. Yeah. So I'm down for all that stuff. I actually appreciated that it was a big build-up. That's one of the reasons why I enjoyed it. It was that very good kind of suspense feeling that you got from beginning to end. Really, there was that moment at the beginning when the Doctor flies into Stark Tower, and and greets everybody, and there's hugs and smiles and stuff, and then that lasts for literally a minute and a half, and then what felt like just a snap of the fingers, everything just turned very, very bad quickly. And from that moment on, there was this very just intense build up throughout the entire episode. And I love that. I thought that was I think that was needed. I think it's needed at this point in the season, because if we had another episode where it was like, Doctor and Ruby turns up to something, gets in a bit of a pickle, the Doctor cries, save the day. I think if we had another one like that and it was just a standalone single finale episode, it would have been like, right, this is getting a bit tough now to get through. So overall, really liked it, dude. For me, the best ep of the series. It has its problems. It's a bit style over substance, but that seems to be the thing with this season, apparently. So a good example of that is the TARDIS just crashing through, flying through the doors of the unit tower at the beginning and spinning around and all that stuff. That didn't need to happen. The TARDIS just needed to materialise inside the room, and then they come out. So it seems to be a recurring theme, that there's a lot of style to this one and that sort of thing. But what do you think to taking out the sort of last 10 minutes with the whole Sutek thing? What did you think to sort of the overall story, where they obviously lean very heavily into Ruby's mother and trying to find out who that is with the cool time window technology and all that stuff? Did you think did you think that we were going to find out the identity of Ruby's mother? Did you think they were going to crack it? Because they came pretty close, but the overall story was mainly about that, wasn't it, before Sutek?
Yes, I was thoroughly engrossed in it the whole build up to that. I did wonder right at the end when everything was going crazy and Ruby was in the room on her own. I did wonder if the figure was going to turn around and we were going to see the face. Even if we didn't know who it was, I thought, are they going to actually show who's under the hood? Are they going to turn around and pull the hood down? So I was thinking that was where we were going towards the sort of climax of the episode, but that wasn't the case. I still think it was an incredible cliffhanger, though, in terms of I just as soon as it finished thought, how am I going to last another week till the next episode? And I don't think I felt like this at all, this series. Even with episodes I've enjoyed, I've not sort of switched off and thought, oh man, I can't wait for next week now. This series hasn't had that sort of flow that I think it's been missing. This sort of, I think the series has been missing the build up that this episode had, if you know what I mean, which is unusual, mate, because the two things that have been missing from this series for me are the sort of overarching build up and characters, and those are two things that we've always said Russell is really good at. You know, he's always really good at throwing in these little things each episode, to like breadcrumbs, we call them, don't they? Just to get you invested. And they have been there, but they've just sort of, I don't know, they've been too few and far between. And I don't know, this series just hasn't, you know, considering how many mysteries are actually in this series, you know, they've not been sort of forefront enough to make me think about them. Yeah. So this episode kind of had all of those things thrown in and sort of reminded you of all the little plot points that Russell's been seeding in throughout the series, but it hasn't really flowed that well, I don't think, this series. And the other thing we've always said Russell's great at is writing characters. And I'll be honest, mate, this series hasn't really had any particularly memorable characters. Even the Doctor and Ruby, who I really do like Shooty and Millie together. I think they've got great chemistry. But even those characters like Ruby, we don't really know that much about her. You know, I know she's a mystery, so maybe that's the point. But I don't know. They're the sort of two things that we always give Russell credit for that I think have sort of been a bit lacking through this series. But yeah, this episode, in terms of finally bringing those threads together to make up, you know, this story, I think it definitely worked. I was thoroughly engrossed by what was going on, you know, and all the questions and twists and turns were working for me in this episode. Finally, I was like, you know, like even like Mrs. Flood, you know, I thought Mrs. Flood was going to be in it a lot more, and she, in terms of the series, you know, I thought she was going to make a few more appearances. I think she's only popped up once or twice, is it?
Twice.
And yet in the one scene that she was in this episode, it was really cool. I loved the scene with Mrs. Flood where that woman was like, get me a cup of tea, and she's like, oh, well, we all want things we can't have. And she turned really dark, and then everything started going crazy. I was like, I'm loving this, you know. So I just wish, I know I said it earlier, but I just wish we'd got a bit more of these moments throughout the series to sort of lead up to this episode, if you know what I mean, because it did just cut straight to the chase, didn't it? There was no sort of no sort of slow intro and then we're into it. We went straight into the story with the TARDIS, bang, straight into Unit Tower, let's go, which I loved. I thought, okay, this is the way to do it. You know, we're straight into the story, no messing, and we were off, and I like that. But I just feel like, yeah, the rest of the series has sort of been missing that sort of urgency a bit, I think. Yeah,
no, I agree with you, dude. I think, like I mentioned earlier, it felt like this episode was more Russell. If you were watching Doctor Who with your friend or your mate and they had switched off after Russell had left, hadn't seen any of the Moffat stuff, whatever, and then you watch this one without the rest of this season, I think it would be very, very familiar. They would think, right, okay, this feels like where I left off from the previous Russell years. It feels very Russell, whereas some of the other ones don't particularly do that. So I agree with you on story. One thing that's I've seen a couple of times, and I think a couple of people in our who sent in reviews for this have mentioned it, and that is, how do you think this would have gone down with a casual viewer? So I know that's a bit of a strange thing to say, because if you've only just joined Doctor Who and you've only just watched this one without watching the rest of the season, that's a bit, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it's not ideal. But if you were a fresh Doctor Who viewer, what would you have thought to this episode? Because when me and my wife had finished watching this one, she was completely like not a clue. Absolutely no clue. My wife doesn't really dive into classic Who. She's seen a few eps here and there, but she doesn't really do that stuff. So she had never heard of Sutekh. Like, I was leaning forward on the sofa and I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. And she was like, I have no idea what's going on. So she did for the bulk of the episode, all that stuff around trying to find out Ruby's mum, because she'd have been invested in that after watching all the other episodes in the season. But the whole thing with Sutekh coming back and all that stuff, she was like, I imagine if you know who that is and you've watched classic Who, this will have a much bigger impact on you. She said, but for me, I have no idea what's going on. So what do you reckon to the casual viewer then for this?
That's interesting, actually. Yeah, because I was going to say, I think there was enough sort of explanation to sort of give the casual viewer, enough to enjoy it anyway. But maybe the build-up of Sutekh, I guess, yeah, I would say, I mean, I can't speak for someone who doesn't know who Sutekh is, but I would imagine if you didn't know who Sutekh was and you got that big reveal, I think just by the way the Doctor reacts, you're going to understand that this is a big deal. The Doctor looked terrified. So even if you never heard of Sutekh before and you were just casually watching this, I think you get the idea that, the bleep's about to hit the fan here, and I think it would entice perhaps someone to go and find out who Sutekh is. It might push a few people towards Pyramids of Mars tonight that maybe have not seen it. And, it's weird. I always, people that I chat to and have got to know over the years, I always assume that they've all watched classic Who. It's just a natural assumption I make. And I'm always quite surprised when people like our good friend Morgan, for example, hello Morgan, will turn around at the BFI screening and say, say for example, the Time Meddler, when we went to see that, he's like, I've never seen this before. I'm like, you've never seen the Time Meddler? And I'm always just assume that everybody who likes Doctor Who has watched every single second of it, if you know what I mean. And I never stop to think that people, even like, hardcore fans of this era, may not have seen Pyramids of Mars before, but there will be people, mate, that will be tuning in to watch Pyramids of Mars tonight for the first time that have been watching Doctor Who for a long time, but they've not necessarily dipped into the classics. So, yeah, in a way, mate, although they may not have got it, I hope it sort of pushes more people towards stories like that. So I think it can only be a good thing in a way. Yeah,
I mean, from that point of view, if you have tuned into this season fresh from episode 1, and you've gone through the season and you're invested, and you're like, actually, this whole Doctor Who thing is pretty cool, and I like what I've seen, then you're right, yeah, hopefully it does give people a nudge to be like, okay, I know of the classic era, and I know all, the history and all that stuff, but I've never really wanted to sort of dip my toe in. The first, if the first story you watch from classic Who is Pyramids of Mars, that's not a bad thing, is it? Because that's a bit of a cracker of a story for your first one.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah. It's a good one. Yeah. Just want to get your thoughts on that, dude, because it was something that was in my mind, thinking, for Who fans like us, or the other content creators we speak to, and just general fandom that are into that stuff, then we would of course knew exactly what was going on. As soon as you start to, the Doctor's like, oh, it's the wrong anagram, and we see it, and we've heard sort of rumours about, is Sutekh going to be the thing? There was a bit of a leak weeks and weeks ago, and we mentioned it on this podcast, didn't we? I don't know, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and we did the whole thing, put your fingers in your ear. This is a bit of a potential spoiler, but you never really know. They did, especially the Gabriel Wolf thing, they kept that locked down really well. That was cool. But so we would have known exactly the impact of a character like Sutekh coming back and all that. But it's just interesting that the casual fan may have been a bit like, oh, fandom's going nuts, but I have literally no clue.
Like what's the fuss about, sort of thing.
But that's interesting, and the whole reveal was done very well. So like I said, the story up until that point was pretty much about trying to find out the character of Ruby's mum, and then there was a tiny little bit around Susan, the Susan Triad thing, we got a little bit more of a character insight into her quote unquote true character, right? So it turns out that she's had dreams about these other characters that we've seen as the viewer in the previous episodes, and that was all cool. So we had a little bit of that, and then the final 5 minutes or so was the whole Sutek thing. So that was all good. What did you think to some of the performances on hand here, dude? So we had, like I said, a reasonably large supporting cast for this one. So what did you think to Gemma Redgrave then? She's back as Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, and I'll say off the bat, dude, I really warmed to her in this one. I don't know how you feel about her performance in this one, but it was one of the first stories for me that I actually thought she's a little bit warmer, because I felt in some previous episodes she was a little bit not cold, but a very, very methodical, very, very much like the director has said, right, for this character, you kind of have to be like your dad. Like, your character's dad, who's, didn't often crack too many smiles and was very by the book and stuff. So, but in this one, I thought, she gives the Doctor a hug. There's a nice few little smiles. There's a couple of memories and trip down memory lane and that sort of thing. So, Gemma Redgrave, dude, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think I've seen on previous podcasts or other podcasts when she's been in stories like in the Jodie episode and that she can come across as a bit one-dimensional, and I've not been her biggest fan up until now. But I will agree with you, mate. I finally saw a character there, and I think I got to give Russell a bit of credit for that, for actually, giving her some fun lines, but also giving her a couple of nice moments. I did like the scene when she went over to the Doctor and was talking to him about Susan and saying about how her dad used to tell her stories of the Doctor and all this sort of thing. So yeah, I liked Gemma Redgrave in this as well. I thought she gave a good performance. I just think she got a bit more meat on the bones in terms of the script for a change. So yeah, rather than just being this stern, cold, standing there, hands on the hips, she actually felt a bit in charge of the situation, like when she told everyone to get out and, apart from you and you, the rest of you out of here and all this sort of stuff. And when she turned and demanded that Sutek reveal, themselves to her and all this sort of thing, it just, she actually got some good moments in this. The only bit I found slightly puzzling was when she was so cross with the Doctor because that soldier died. I mean, I get it. She's angry that she's lost a member of her team, but it's weird because, it was sort of made a point of, she turns around and gives this Doctor this glare of like, that was all your fault. And I don't know, I just sort of thought she must have seen millions of people, millions of soldiers be wiped out. It seemed a little bit, okay, what was that about? But I mean, I don't know, maybe they're just reinforcing that, she was cross that the Doctor sort of pushed him to keep looking and she told him not to move. I don't know. But otherwise, mate, yes, I thought it was a good story for her. And I finally have warmed to the character a bit because I've always thought they were okay, but a bit, for want of a better word, meh, So, yeah, I liked her.
Yeah, no, she was good. And yeah, that scene was a little bit confusing. It was a great scene, don't get me wrong, that they spent quite a bit of time on that, the time window thing. And it was a funny little intro to that section where the Doctor says to Kate, have you got a time window? She's like, no, you told us explicitly that we weren't to do that. And then he says, where is it? And she's like, second floor.
Loved that.
Yes, that was very cool. And then that whole scene in the time window when they reconstruct it's a really cool concept. And that's one of the things that I think we've missed from the other Russell episodes, of these quirky little things like this, where from a VHS tape, they've managed to recreate an entire scene from history and observe it and stuff. But that whole scene in the time window that for me was when it really ramped up with the whole suspense thing and the mystery around what's going on. And Shooty was great in this episode, but in that bit he was really good when he's trying to, it's almost like he's directing a film, he's like shouting at Morris, he's shouting at, some of the unit people, he's trying to break everything down methodically. It's really like classic Who style, like just the Doctor with his investigative hat on and trying to do all that stuff. It was really cool. So that whole time window thing was cool. And then when the guy that got wiped out, who it was another guy from Manchester, wasn't it, that Ruby had a little connection with, and so that whole scene when he gets killed, and then Kate gives him this real sort of look of disdain and walks off, doesn't she, and all that stuff. But then moments later, she's talking to the Doctor and she seems okay again. Which is a bit weird. Yeah. So I see what you're saying on that, dude. It seems a bit like they just maybe wanted to reinforce the fact that, she was sort of done with losing unit people to things and she wasn't happy about it. But then, that mood didn't stay around for long. So.
No, and also just 2 minutes before, she'd been having a chat with him and he was saying, I bring destruction everywhere. And she's like, no, you don't. You bring joy. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, you've just had a unit Sergeant Conway killed. What are you doing? So, I don't know. I think a lot of this series, mate, has suffered from the 45-minute runtime and also the fact that we've only got 8 episodes. I can see scenes like this that just feel a little bit clunking out of place because of that, really. If you know what I mean. Yeah.
So that guy was quite cool. So that was Winston Chidozi, Colonel Winston Chidozi. I don't recognise the actor though. I think it was Takia Newell is the guy, or I'm butchering that. I think it's either Tachia or Takia, and he was cool though. He was he didn't do that thing that some characters do when the Doctor turns up and go all silly and all that, he was kind of cool, and then met his demise in a wouldn't say an horrific way, but certainly not a good way to go.
I knew as soon as he started backing up behind the TARDIS and going behind him, like, he's gone.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that guy again.
Yeah.
Again, that was what I loved about, this is what's been missing from Doctor Who, the series, is little moments like that where you're literally like, no, don't go behind the TARDIS. Oh, now look what's happened. It's sort of almost like wanting to shout at the screen because you're that invested in what's going on. That's what I was loving about this. There was lots of moments like that.
Yes.
I loved the whole time window thing, mate. I thought I don't know that I understand it. Even yesterday, rewatching it, I concentrated very hard to try and work out how the concept of it. Like, say we're saying, don't move, you can't move, and can she see us and all this? I don't really understand the time window, if I'm absolutely honest, but I don't really care because I really liked the concept of it and what was going on. The fact that they sort of used the VHS to recreate the world and that moment and stepped into it, and time was changing around them and there was another TARDIS there. It was just great. Again, I didn't care that I didn't really get how it worked. But sometimes I think with Doctor Who, quite a lot of the time actually, you just have to go with the flow. And I just thought it's a great concept, and it made for really interesting visually, wasn't it, as well? And again, the suspense and going on in those scenes, where are we going to get to see the face? And then it glitches and the hooded characters walk past them, and did anybody see the face and all this sort of thing? It was really good stuff, I thought.
Yeah. No, I agree, dude. It was very cool. That whole section was great. Okay, and what did you think to Melanie Bush back then? So Bonnie Langford's back. What a fantastic... She looks great, She looks really...
She looks fab.
Yeah. And she was... you can tell that she's, as a character, matured a lot from, the classic moments, the classic episodes that she was in donkeys years ago, where she was quite squeaky and giggly, and which was quite, very cute back in the day, and that was part of the charm, I guess, for that. But in this one, she's got very much a bit more of a take control attitude about her. So there was a bit where the Doctor's pretty miffed about Chidozi being killed, and that they're about to go in to see Susan Triad, and he's like smashing the lift, and he sort of sits on the floor. He's not having a good time of it, and Mel's like, stop. Basically, she's like, stop sitting there whinging about it. Change it, fix it. And and she strolls off and she's ready to go. And so she's really cool. And dude, just very quickly, I know you're probably going to love her performance as I did, but as a bit of an offshoot, are you still got fingers crossed about a bit of a tag team with potentially her and Ace for like, an Ace spin-off, with Ace running the whole, what's the charity thing that she's got?
Oh, something Earth, Destination Earth.
Something, yeah. I remember now. So I think her and Ace and potentially, oh God, it's one of those episodes where I'm terrible with names. What's her face from Davison's era? The Australian.
Tegan? Tegan Javanka?
Yeah. Fingers crossed for like a bit of a team up with those guys, because they've still got it, man. They've still, and there's loads of stories that could be like a very cool, seeing as sadly we would not get any more Sarah Jane adventures. That could be a nice gap to fill with those guys, So, but anyway, what do you reckon to Bonnie Langford?
Tag team, by the way, absolutely. I'd be if that was a spin-off, I'd be on it like a shot. Bonnie was great. She really was. She's, the character of Mel, she did get a bit of a rough deal back in the classic series. They didn't really know what to do with her, and so they just made her scream a lot. And boy, can Bonnie scream. Russell's obviously decided to, flesh out the character a bit more. And she was brilliant in it. And Bonnie is a great actress, actually. I don't watch EastEnders. I can't stand the soaps, but I know she was in that for a long time, and she's got a lot of range. And yes, it was great to see Mel back, and they haven't really changed the character in terms of she's still this clever person that is involved in tech, which again was sort of mentioned on screen back in the classic era, but we never really saw her utilize her computer skills and all this. So this time she's right in the thick of the action. She's she's clever, she's strong. I loved that scene when she told the Doctor to pull himself together, because I think she was speaking for the whole audience, because we all thought he was about to start crying again. And she was like, stop grizzling, pick yourself up and fix it. I was like, yes, that's right, Mel. Cool. Loved her in it, mate. And I like the fact I loved the bit where she popped up at the start, where they were talking about Susan Twist, and it's like, oh, by the way, she's Susan's assistant. And then it cuts to Mel in the room with Susan. I thought, yes, Bonnie's right in the heart of the story. She's not just behind a computer screen in Stark Towers. She's right in the thick of it. So, it was great to see her back. I loved her in it. I can't wait to see her again this week.
Yeah, same. She was really cool. I love Melanie Bush, as a character. Just very cool, mate.
Yeah, again, it'll bring her character to a newer audience as well,
Yep. Okie dokie. What did you think? So we had a new character as part of Unit. This was Maurice Gibbons, played by Lenny Rush. He was the child genius, he's the new scientific advisor for Unit. He's only 13 he was actually a bit of a side thing here, but Lenny Rush was cast as one of the voices in the Space Babies episode. He was the voice of Eric.
Oh, was he?
In Space Babies, yeah. And Russell was so impressed with him as a voice actor. He was like, I want to bring you in as a physical actor in an episode. So Russell created this character specifically for Lenny Rush, which is very cool. But I actually really, really liked him. I really warmed to him straight away, because he's got that excitement about all the Unit tech. You know what I mean? He's got that kind of enthusiasm and excitement, but he also he knows his onions, if that makes sense. He knows exactly how to work it all and all that sort of stuff. So he's got a level of confidence about him without being arrogant, which is a really cool thing. So a great new little character. I hope they don't kill him off immediately. I hope we see him come back again for stuff. So but yeah, what do you think to Maurice Gibbons then, the new scientific advisor?
I hope they don't kill him off. You've worried me now because I hadn't even considered that.
Well,
because I know that Shirley...
Yeah, they keep him in the room, don't they, as the Sutek apparition is there and stuff, so Kate, tells everybody to get out of the room apart from her, Morris, the Doctor, obviously, and stuff. So, yeah, they might do, dude, but I hope not.
I hope not. I'm just thinking, I know Shirley Bingham's back for Series 2, so are they going to get rid of Morris and put her back in? Oh, you've got me worried now, because I really liked him as well. I thought he played that sort of cheeky chappy, really, really had some really funny lines, like when he was doing the countdown as well to, possibility of a trap, 96% now, and all this sort of stuff. I thought it was great. And you just said just there about it's very easy when you get lines like that or dialogue or a character like this, that if you don't get if you don't play it right, they can come across as arrogant and unlikable. Mm-hmm. And he absolutely pitched his quirky, fun character performance well. I really liked him. I just thought instantly, like you, liked the sort of fun side that he was bringing to the episode, but also the fact he was clever, that he knew what he was doing and stuff. So yeah, he was good, mate. And the only thing I would say, and I don't want to sort of pick up too much on RTD's, for want of a better phrase, lazy writing this series. When they explained his genius, they did just throw it away with a line of something about, it was all thanks to a passing comet or something.
Yeah.
They were like, I'm a genius because of a passing comet. How the hell does that work? I'm going to be standing outside in the garden, mate, for the next couple of weeks, hoping a passing comet goes by to give me a bit of a genius. But no, that didn't bother me at all. I just thought, what? It was a very much throwaway line to explain why he's there, because, I did think, what's UNIT doing employing, child labour, 13-year-old kid, does seem a bit odd, but I don't care, mate. I thought it was fun. I thought he was a really fun character.
It was a passing asteroid, to be
a passing asteroid.
Correct. Yeah, but no, I echo you. Yeah, I really hope they don't kill him off.
Now you've said it, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, and he's just got something about him as well. He's got a very likable, like just the way he talks and how he's delivered his lines and stuff, and his cheeky little smile at things where, when the doctor first walks into the time window, he just starts cracking up, doesn't he? Because he's like, this is a bit of a shambles, really. You've just sort of lashed this all together and it's a bit rough around the edges. And I think Morris said something, I can't remember the line, but he has this kind of cheeky little smile and stuff. So yeah, I really liked his character, dude. Hope we see him again. Yeah. Okay, what did you think too? So we had a couple of returning characters, didn't we? So we had Michelle Greenidge as Carla Sunday. So Ruby's mum's back, and she was pretty cool. She was, I think she wanted to get involved because she knew that maybe something was going to go down with what would happen to Ruby if she did find out who her real mum is, and she needed some emotional support. And she had this very cool, just wanting to be nosy as well. She wanted to see what was going on.
To be part of it.
Be part of it, yeah. So she was quite cool, dude. Michelle Greenidge, Carla Sunday. And also, as you mentioned earlier, we had Anita Dobson back as Mrs. Flood, albeit quite a small part of it, and Ruby's grandma as well. So a nice little scene there. Did you think that Mrs. Flood was going to go a bit like, how Susan Triad turned out, to be one of the acolytes of Sutek, if you like. She turned really weird, and I thought they were going to cut back to Mrs. Flood and she was going to look like that with the makeup on and all that stuff. So what do you reckon's happening with Mrs. Flood then, dude? Because that's another conundrum in itself. So I don't want to spend bags of time on it, but I don't know. There was another theory knocking around as well that she might be Clara, like an old Clara. Because
she's wearing the same clothes.
Exactly the same clothes as the young Clara. So there's a bunch of stuff around Mrs. Flood, dude. But Anita Dobson was cool, man. She had that sort of nice, friendly, smiley face on, but underneath it, she knows what's going down. So those guys were cool, right? So Carla Sunday.
I'm loving
Mrs. Flood.
I'm loving Mrs. Flood. Yeah, loving the mystery, mate. I don't know. A lot of people are saying that that's going to carry through to series 2. We may not get an answer for Mrs. Flood yet. But yeah, like you, I was expecting, because she was only in that one scene, and we didn't go back to her at all. But like you, I was expecting to see her all masked up and looking scary when we went back. That could still happen, of course, but I don't think so. I think she's something else. I don't know, mate. I hopefully not an old Clara, although it's really weird how her grey top and white shirt is exactly like what Clara wore, even down to the way it's buttoned up. I don't think Clara's come back in a diner TARDIS, but although it might explain the line, never seen a TARDIS before. I haven't got a clue, mate. You could she could be anybody. People are saying the Rani, people are saying I don't know. She could be anything. I have no clue. She baffles me more than Ruby's mum.
Yeah.
She could
same.
be Ruby's mum. Just don't know. But it was a good moment. I loved it.
Yes.
He's coming. Loved it.
Yep, that was cool. And then we had a couple of little almost cameos, if you like. So Nick Briggs is back as the voice of Lynx, the android robot they've got at Unit helping out. And
didn't even realise that was him doing the voice.
Yeah, so he's had a bit of a paint job since we saw him in the Christmas special, was it? And looking all shiny and all that stuff. Very, very Marvel Avengers-y kind of thing, that.
I've got a bad feeling about the Vlinks, isn't it? The Vlinks. I've got a bad feeling about the Vlinks, mate. I feel like because there's all this thing about technology and Susan Twist and all to do with technology and all that. I don't know. I just get the feeling that Vlinks is going to suddenly stand up from his chair, rip the wires out and turn evil. I don't know what it is. I don't trust him. I don't trust that robot, mate. I don't know what it is, but I don't trust it. And I could be wrong. I could be doing him a disservice. But there's something about him, I don't know. His face, someone pointed out his face looks a bit like the old Sutek mask as well, the jackal. It's the same shape. And ever since, and maybe that's what has put that in my mind, but I can't unsee it. And every time he's up there, I'm like, he's in a position of power, mate, to bring down Unit. He's plugged right into their network, isn't he? I guess, it wouldn't take much for Sutek to take over him and destroy the whole Unit tower. I don't know. So I'm sure something's going to happen with that thing.
No,
we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. And then we had another, again, it's kind of a cameo, a returning character. So Rose Noble, played by Yasmin Finney. She's back. We saw her in the Star Beast, didn't we? Which feels like forever ago now. And so she's back, not really doing a great deal, I'll be honest. I mean, she felt pointless in this episode. I hope she gets more to do this week. Yeah. Yes, I hope so. Yeah, because she was there just to say, the character's not been forgotten. She's still here knocking around. I thought it was interesting the Doctor asked her how her uncle was doing as well, because I think he's referring to the 14th Doctor, is he? Because the Doctor called himself uncle and niece. So, yeah, quite a nice little throwaway line. I never realised how tall Yasmin Finney was until she was stood next to poor old Millie Gibson, who's probably the same height as me, because I'm a shorty. She was towering over Millie. But yeah, I mean, she was pointless to this episode. She didn't get anything to do. I felt like there was potential for some fun scenes with her and Ruby. Like, there's a little bit of chemistry there, like when they were talking about Davina, and, they seemed like they could have some good scenes together. But, she didn't get anything to do really this week, apart from just sit and say the odd line, sit behind a computer. So yeah, fingers crossed she'll get some more meat on the bones, as I like to say on this week's script. Yeah, meat on the bones. Yeah, hopefully. Right, and Millie Gibson then, dude, as Ruby Sunday. I think she's been a highlight for me throughout the season so far, dude, and this episode was no exception to that, really. I thought she was excellent in this. She had a real sense of being part of the gang, if that makes sense, at the beginning of the episode, where she turns up with the Doctor, and then she even says that, when she's pleading, to try and get some sort of reaction from the hologram in the time window of her mum, which obviously was never going to happen. but she's like, I want to tell you that I made it and I've traveled the universe. And so she's got this thing where she's like, she feels part of it and it's all good. But then on the flip side, which shows her range, she's absolutely distraught, that she can't see her mum. Nobody can point out what's going on and who she is and all that stuff. So another cracking episode, dude, for Millie Gibson. She's been awesome.
Yes, I absolutely agree, mate. I absolutely love Millie as Ruby Sunday. I'm worried what's going to happen to her. I'm worried about the mystery, what the answers are to her mystery, because we know that we get a new companion in the next series. I'm just wondering where this is all leading up to, because I'm not ready to lose her. I don't feel like we've got to. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface in getting to know Ruby Sunday, and I really do like her. I think Millie's a great little actress. So I'm hoping she's not going anywhere too soon, but it feels like she is. And a lot of people have pointed out, and I didn't notice it myself, but a lot of people have pointed out that the Sutek at the end, the dog Sutek or Jackal, whatever that's meant to be, surrounding the TARDIS, has got a ruby right in the centre of its head. Yeah. And I'm just worried about what the mystery around Ruby is going to turn out to be, and that I just don't want to lose her this early on, mate. I don't want her to just, I don't know, be something other than what she is, because I think she's a great character.
No, I agree, dude. Yeah, I know we're going to lose her at some point. That's been confirmed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like we just mentioned with Morris and stuff, would they kill her off? It's very rare that you see that in Who, even in today's modern Doctor Who, you don't often see it. So, in terms of companions, I mean, so who knows, man? But she's been excellent, Millie Gibson.
She has. Yeah. She's been absolutely fantastic. And as I said, that she hasn't been given a lot of characterization by Russell, but what she has been given, she's absolutely grabbed with both hands, and the warmth that comes through in her performance. It just proves what a great actor she is. I think she's been brilliant this series.
Yes, agreed. And Ncuti then, Mr. Gatwa. Like I mentioned earlier, I thought this was the best episode of the series so far for me. I think this is one of Ncuti's best performances for me. I think he was... I think he's been... Don't get me wrong, I think he's been great throughout the season. I think it's more so some of the episode stories that he's had to work with, and a little bit of writing here and there hasn't shown him in his best form, even though he's tried to, and he's carried a couple of stories as well. I think with his performance he's been very good. This one though, I thought, for me personally, I thought this one was more true, a much more authentic performance for him. And the reason why I think that is because in some of the previous episodes it got to a point where he almost became a meme of himself with certain things, like especially after the third episode, it was like, right, okay, who's got, like me and my wife had a bet on, like, at what point is he going to cry, because he's becoming to that point where it's like, the Doctor cries all the time, and there's like the formula for the episode is that, like I mentioned earlier, something happens, they're in a pickle, there's a bit of drama, the Doctor cries, and then, a quick wrap up towards the end. So I feel like because of that, he's had to almost sort of follow a formula. And to see him break out of that was very cool. So we saw him, as I mentioned earlier, with his detective hat on, which was really cool. Reminded me of the third Doctor a little bit. And it's some real classic Who vibes from it as well. It's like, I've seen that a few times throughout the season where it's felt very, very classic Who. And you can see that Russell has leaned into that quite a lot. He's mentioned it in interviews as well, that some of the storylines and little bits and bobs he's had in his head for 40 years or whatever, from, watching certain elements of classic Who and stuff. So I think in this one, we break out of that a little bit. He's shown a bit more range. He hasn't defaulted to that formula of someone's just died, I'm going to cry, then I'm going to sort it out sort of thing. So I felt like, and it because of his performance, that added to the whole, the stakes are really high in this one. And, what's going to happen is potentially very, very bad. And you can see the dread in his face, and especially with the reveal towards the end and all that stuff. So I actually think for me, this is his best performance of the season, because of those things, because it's not the same as all the other stuff that he's done. Even though that's been great to a degree, this one for me was a lot truer from what I think he could actually be as the Doctor. So I love this performance in this one, dude. What about you?
Yes, yeah, I would agree with you, mate. And I think I said at this, from his very first episode that he has hit the ground running and feels like the Doctor. But obviously, he's still got to settle in and find all those different characteristics that the Doctor is. And I think at this point in this episode, I think we are seeing a lot of that, a lot of the depth when he was talking about his granddaughter. I did think it was a bit odd that he jumped straight to the conclusion that Susan was his, or maybe it was actually Ruby actually. It said, "Oh, Doctor, but Susan," so it must be. It seemed a little bit of a jump because I'm sure there's more than one Susan in the world. But again, I think that's a casualty of the sort of limited episode count and the runtime of the episode. So yeah, that felt a little bit clunky to me, but it didn't bother me that much. But Ncuti was great, mate. Absolutely brilliant. He is such a likable character, He can go. He has that ability to go from fun to serious, which is why I always love when someone's playing the Doctor. So the bit when he walks in the time window, and he just bursts out laughing about how rubbish it is. He's like, "What? Seriously, this?" And he's doing like a proper, full-on, hearty laugh. And then he goes from that to sort of being really serious, telling Ruby not to move and bringing the emotion and stuff. So he's absolutely got the qualities that I love to see in the character of the Doctor. When it's, when he's given that in the script, he absolutely grabs it with both horns. So yeah, fantastic performance from Ncuti in this. I really liked him. I loved the bit actually as well. This is the thing. There are so many moments in this episode that I loved. It feels so good to be saying this after the last sort of few weeks. But the bit where he went up to Susan Twist finally, when Mel's like, "Come and find out if it is Susan. Just get on with it." And he goes up and he's like talking to Susan Twist saying, "You do remember, don't you? You remember this, you remember that." Just so many great scenes, And then obviously at the end when he sees Sutek or whatever, or he finds out it's Sutek, he looks absolutely terrified. So yeah, great performance from Ncuti in this. And I do get what you mean about probably his best performance. I think he's been consistently good. But there have been times when the way it's been written, I think, has let him down with all the crying. Didn't really like the way it was written in Rogue. But this, I felt like, yeah, absolutely the Doctor, completely.
Yeah, agreed. Defo. And what did you think to the whole potentially Susan, as in his granddaughter Susan, being in it? Because there was a moment where I thought, is Carol Ann Ford going to pop up here? Are they going to finally, and justifiably bring her back? And because there was an announcement, a very small announcement by Big Finish on their Twitter. I think that the day of or the day before this episode went out, and it was a continuation of the storyline for Susan's War, the Big Finish stories, and they said, this is like buses. 4 years have gone past, and then all of a sudden, you have a lot of Susan out there. So I thought, is this like a Big Finish been briefed by the Beeb or something and said, Carol Ann Ford is coming back. So do we want to tease a little bit of this here and that sort of thing? So, but did you think Carol Ann Ford was going to pop up? And she might be in it next week, dude. Who knows? But that would be cool, right?
I personally am hoping she pops up in the next episode. Even if it's just a short scene at the end, I just want to see the Doctor go back and see Susan. After all these mentions of her name, I think I'd feel slightly cheated in a way if it's been used as bait. I really want to see Carol Ann Ford pop up, mate. The thing with the Big Finish set being announced actually slightly worried me that we won't, because they don't normally conflict with anything to do with what's going on in the modern series. So they quite often have to check with the BBC that, oh, you're not doing anything with Susan, are you, at this series? Because we're releasing, So that actually worried me, the fact that they've released that box set, because that might mean she's not in it. But I really do hope we get to see her. That is going to make my day if we see Carol Ann Ford this week. If we don't, same. I feel like I'm trying not to get too invested in that, because I feel like I feel like I might be in for a disappointment. But yeah, I hope we do, mate. I've got my fingers crossed for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then just lastly, before we get to scores, are you happy to see or hear Gabriel Wolf back as the voice of Sutek? And it was a really cool sort of animated creature that they had wrap around the TARDIS, right? The big sort of Egyptian-looking dog cat thingy and all that stuff. Yeah. So are you suitably impressed that they've brought Sutek back after all this time? It has a different feel, doesn't it? Because there's only so many times you can be wowed by Cybermen walking through the door or the Daleks, whatever. So to have that kind of monster come back, who we've only ever seen, if you discount Big Finish, once sort of televised, it was a bit of a moment, right? It was because of the story Pyramids of Mars and how cool, how enjoyable people find that one. To then bring Gabriel Wolf back is, consistency is is amazing for that stuff. So you're happy that Sutek's back and all the potential death that he could bring, and that's going to be a bit of the Doctor's going to have his hand for, right? That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's I am absolutely thrilled he's back, and I think, like you said, there are so many great villains throughout Doctor Who's history that we could have brought back by now, and we have rolled out the Daleks and the Cybermen so many times when it is refreshing to get one of the other classic characters brought back. I just hope Russell does something with him, because I do worry that this episode was all build up to the reveal of Sutek, and then it's going to be, now what? I am slightly worried that this second half that we're getting this week has got to deliver, mate. It's got to be a good second half, and Russell isn't always the best at doing wrap-up episodes. So I am slightly worried what he might do with Sutek, because he's such a beloved character, even though he's only been in that one story. I just hope he uses him well. I hope he delivers. But I am thrilled to be back, and the fact they got Gabriel Wolf back to do the voice, even better. I don't know that I was over impressed with the CGI. It was a dog, right? I thought Sutek was a jackal, but that dog face, whatever, didn't. I've got to be honest, it didn't work for me. I mean, it was fine, but I don't know. I didn't think the CGI was that great. It was good, I suppose, but I didn't really like the design of it or anything. I don't know. It didn't quite have the impact that I think it should have done in terms of it visually. Like the reveal of Sutek and all the build-up and the music and everything, fantastic. But for me, it was far scarier seeing Susan Twist with that sort of skull face. That was terrifying, because it was a physical prop. Actually, can I just say, while I remember as well, having watched a little bit behind the scenes on Twitter, seeing Susan Twist getting made up for all the other scenes where she was like a demon and like a half robotic person, I just assumed that was CGI. That poor woman was in that makeup chair for hours for those scenes, and they were on screen for a second or two at best. I can't believe they went to all that effort to keep making it look different for those scenes when they could have just CGI'd it. But what did you think of the CGI of Sutek, mate? Because when it was all building up and the sand was swirling around the TARDIS and the music was going crazy, I was on the edge of my seat. But when the dog face appeared, it did a little bit. I did feel a little bit let down by it. I thought, I don't know about that, if I'm honest. I didn't think it looked that great.
I didn't think it looked... if we think about some episodes of Who in the past, where you can tell that for one reason or another, whether it's budget or direction, whatever, the CG has not really lived up to it. But I thought this one was not too bad, if I'm being honest. I thought it wasn't too bad. I would love to have seen much more of it made. And what I mean by that is they could have had a very big sort of vortex in the background and lots of things flying through it, and then you saw the creature of whatever that manifestation of Sutek, the jackal thing, come through and make a bit more of it. But I didn't think it was too bad. It certainly seemed worse.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't say it was bad at all. It wasn't bad. It was good. It just wasn't as good as because with the Disney budget being ploughed into this series, and there was talk of Dark Material. The TV series, His Dark Materials. The CGI in that series was absolutely phenomenal. just jaw dropping. And I sort of was, and that's a couple of years old now. I was expecting that sort of level, really, because it's a short scene as well. I mean, in his Dark Materials, those CGI creatures are in it on screen for like pretty much the whole episode, and they look very, very realistic. Whereas this was on screen for a minute or two, and it just isn't comparable in terms of how good the CGI was. I don't know. It wasn't bad. I just thought, I don't know. I'm just expecting the production values to be so good because Disney's involved that maybe I'm just expecting too much. But it was all right. It was fine. It did the job.
Mm-hmm. It did the job.
But it just when it did just finally reveal, I can't lie, I was a bit, is that it? It just looked like a big dog. I wanted to sort of throw it a bone, but anyway.
Yeah, I think the voice, Gabriel's voice, just overtook all that and made it cool. Yeah.
I get you.
Okay. Anything else on your notes, dude, before we score this?
Just a couple of things, mate. Harriet Arbinger, new character that we got. Yeah. Thought she was very good in it. And I loved it when she turned evil and started reeling off he is coming, he has been here, all that. That was fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that was cool.
I don't know who the actor was. You'll have to tell me, but...
that was Genesis Linear. Yeah, Linear.
So good performance from her. The only thing I would say is the whole... Again, I'm not going to go too hard on them for this, but the whole thing that Harriet Arbinger, it's Harbinger, the whole reveal of, I think surely they would have guessed. I mean, it's a little bit... I don't know. They never asked her surname before. That whole Harbinger thing was a bit of a weak reveal, I thought, but great when good performance from the actor in that moment, and it was a superb build-up. There's two things I just want to quickly mention, mate. So the first one is obviously the music from Murray this week, fantastic. Agreed. Absolutely loved it. I was confused by hearing the master theme play during the whole climax scene, the whole cliffhanger. I was like, is it the master? What's going on? Because you definitely hear that. So either Murray has run out of, really creepy music, or that was thrown in as a bit of a double bluff or whatever. I don't know. But did you think that was odd to hear the master theme come in at that point?
Kind of, yeah. I just assumed it was just Murray doing his thing. Sounding a bit more sort of mid-2000s Who. Rather than new.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. And so and lastly, mate, it's just a little thing that's intrigued me. We talked right at the start of the review about the TARDIS, coming in and landing on the helipad on Unit Tower, and it comes blistering down to such a great shot as well of the TARDIS coming down the ramp towards us and that. But it has a couple of people have pointed this out, that the TARDIS doesn't materialize anymore. It flies through the sky, and we haven't seen it do the good old-fashioned materializing, when it sort of fades in and out for a while. I can't remember. I don't know when we last saw that. And people are just theorising about why that is. Have they changed the TARDIS landing? Is it because Sutek's been surrounded by it? Because it did the old-fashioned materialising in and out during the 60th specials, I think, with Tennant.
It did, yeah.
And that's, I think, when we saw it first started groaning and stuff. So is this a thing, or is it just a production decision, or do you think there's more to it?
No, I don't think so, mate. I think it's just a stylistic choice to have the TARDIS come into the scene like that.
Which do you prefer then? Because I miss the old. I miss the old landing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I do too. I'll be honest with you.
As much as I loved that shot of it coming down the unit tower floor, I miss the old landing. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, as much as I think it's really cool how they've accomplished that with the whole zipping through the sky and all that stuff. It looks great, don't get me wrong, but I do miss the whole, and more so the sound effect of it as well, the whole thing. Yeah. So I read you. Yeah. Okie dokie. I think it's you to go first, dude.
It is me to go first. I'm going to slap a 8.5 on this. because I thought that score might go down on the second watch because of, as I said, I knew what was coming and wasn't sure how it would hold up on repeat viewing, but it still gave me the feels and I still really enjoyed it and I'd happily watch it again. It's the first episode of this series that I'm invested in to the point that I would go back and rewatch it. There are episodes I've enjoyed this series, but I'm not bothered about watching them again anytime soon, in all honesty. But this one, I liked it, and it's got me absolutely hyped for the final this week, mate. I'm trying to temper my expectations. I don't want to get carried away, and I don't want to be disappointed. So I'm just trying to calm myself a little bit. But it's definitely got me going, mate, and I'm ready for it. So bring it on. 8.5 for me.
Bring it on. Okay. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. So just slightly less for you. From you, I think it was a very good episode. Like I said, for me, the best of the season so far. Mm-hmm. However, I do feel like we've got, again, better episodes out there. Whether that's this week's episode, or whether that's season 2. With Ncuti, I'm not sure, but from plucking it out and just looking at it isolated within this series, very, very great episode. Got a really good watch, all the things. But I feel like we're not up there with like peak Who, if that makes sense, with Ncuti and some of the stories yet. So yeah,
I get you.
Okay, so an 8.5 from him. An 8 from me. What did our listeners think over on the Twitter? We had David290166 says, to be completely honest, I've been disappointed with the latest season. I was excited to see what RTD would bring. I really enjoyed The Legend of Ruby Sunday. Proper old school Doctor Who. No wokery, no nonsense. Proper Who. More of the same, please.
Yeah.
Our writer Jordan says, loved it, fun and exciting, and Sutek was a real nostalgia hit for me. He was the first villain I ever saw on a grainy VHS. The performances were fantastic, and Ncuti really sold the shock that one of his worst villains is back. Absolutely brilliant. Michael Herbert says, pales in comparison to the Pyramid of Mars. 3 out of 10. Oh dear.
Ooh,
not a fan. Michael, yeah. Nice. Tom Turlow says, pure unadulterated fan bleep, but I'm a fan, so I'm perfectly happy with it. Like all RTD finales, it doesn't stand up to a moment's scrutiny, but it's exciting and fun and full of wow moments. God only knows what the casual viewer made of it, though. When RTD brought back Who for the first time, he was careful not to get bogged down in classic continuity. This no longer seems to be a problem. Hard to give it a full appraisal until I've seen part 2. I'm not confident RTD will land the plane next week, although he does have form, so an 8 out of 10 for this one.
It's a great vision of RTD trying to land a plane. I like that.
Chippy T says, I am unconvinced by Ncuti. Where is the whimsicality, the flashes of genius, the gung-ho attitude, the humour, and the scientific analysis? Maybe next week, but Sutek is back. A good episode, not that great. Hopefully part 2 will put the whole series together. Fingers crossed for 6. Okay. He says, side point, why isn't Shirley Bingham at Unit?
She's off filming another series.
She's off doing something.
Why she's not in it, I don't know. That's what I thought.
Yeah. John Winston says, much more like it. Felt like Ncuti really was the Doctor for the first time, and a far cry from the grim interpretation of the character we saw in Rogue. A cracking episode with a stunning cliffhanger. More like this, please. RTD, 8 out of 10.
Cool.
No Official says, a thrilling start to the finale. Tense, atmospheric and exhilarating. Probably one of the scariest cliffhangers in modern Who. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, sweet.
Edward Galuli, I really enjoyed this. Quite creepy and fantastic to have Sutek back with Gabriel Wolf as the voice. Hopefully it sticks the landing. Just a shame the CGI jackal wasn't a person. 8 out of 10.
I agree.
Yeah, and lastly on Twitter, Sarah Lyons, the Running Whovian, she's back. Sarah, the Running Whovian.
Hello, Sarah.
Says Sarah, yeah. She says, hi guys, this is the first episode of the season I've been fully on board with. Admittedly, it was largely setting the scene for what's to come in part 2. However, it was well paced, full of intrigue, and Sutek's back, 7.5.
Cool. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. And thank everyone over on Twitter and then over on Facebook. Peter Broad says, fun, but my goodness, clunky. Literally had to spell it out, and I really need a word with Unit's HR department. I wouldn't trust this lot to run a whelk stall. What exactly are Rose's qualifications again? Question mark. Please, RTD, no more annoying kids. A 6 out of 10 from Peter.
Okay.
Dale Graham says it was an amazing episode, best of the season. It was very similar to the Master reveal back in Tennant's era. So 10 out of 10. Can't wait for next week's episode.
Wow,
Don't blow it. Yeah.
No.
Alex Bobbins says, oh my giddy aunt, what an ending. Not been excited about a returning character since Alpha Centauri popped up in Series 10. Impressive Jackal Sutek, but I hope we get the humanoid version with lots of menacing chat in the next episode. Still not seeing strength from the Doctor. Felt more like the companion during the scenes when Kate and Mel were providing emotional support. I hope the finale delivers. My gift of death is 7 out of 10.
Sweet.
Richard Hardman says a perfectly serviceable RTD Part 1, similar beats to Utopia. This season really is muddled as far as its audience. What new fans are going to know? What new fans are going to know who Sutek is? 7 out of 10 from Richard.
7.
Mark Atkinson. All set up for Part 2. The Doctor literally stands around doing nothing apart from looking like the Fonz. Still not clicking with Shooty as the Doctor. He's still far too human. But the last 10 minutes are great and the build-up to the Sutek reveal is wonderful. No doubt next week he'll be defeated in some ridiculous manner. Maybe the bogeyman will come back and snot him to death. All in all, this was a decent ep that ended well. 7.9.
Excellent. I am enjoying listening to you and your wife review these, Mark. It's great fun. But yeah, I don't want to see that bogey monster back. Nobody give Russell that idea.
Yeah. Cheers, Mark. Thank you very much. Greg Collier says, been watching all this season with my 10-year-old, and he said after finally a good episode with a good villain. As you mentioned last week, with a young audience watching them, the parents, he covered his face with his hands on the romantic bits and asked me not to tell him when it had finished. Loved revisiting the Unit HQ again. The last 10 minutes was some of the best TV of the year. And we still got many more questions for next week. I did call it maybe Sutek, as maybe this was mentioned on a Discord, but my son had no idea. Brilliant episode and can't wait for next week. Goes on to give it a 9 out of 10. Cheers, Craig. 9. Cool. Jeff Waddle says a great return for a great villain, but it doesn't seem like a very Sutek-y plan, does it? A remake of the Satan Pit, a bit of a stretch, that Sutek stuff, but the image of the jackal on the TARDIS is worth the admission money alone. For the first time, Gatwa acted like the Doctor, and no crying and the ability to command a room. Very promising. 8 out of 10.
Thank you, Jeff.
Says, but as usual with RTD, the finale will have to land, as his record isn't great. Ruby to be the reset button for the win. Oh, yeah. Andrew Stewart, fantastic. It was all set up. But a good setup. Everyone in the cast was phenomenal. I liked how RTD mentioned the obvious TARDIS anagram, with people noticed it, saying before he realised, I hope Mrs. Flood is a plot point for the next series and not next week, as I feel RTD developing the mystery around her really well. However, I am nervous because she wears clothes very similar to Clara. And Clara has her own TARDIS now. Even though she is time-locked, she can't get old. However, I hope it's the Rani, as rain causes flooding, and that's an anagram of Rani.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give the episode a 9 out of 10. Can't wait for Empire of Death. Good point, Andrew.
Like it.
Yeah, like it. Darren Sykes says, intriguing first parts of the finale. The action picked up nicely as the episode progressed. Bit of a weak segue as to why the Doctor's inquiry into Susan Swiss suddenly turned into a mission to identify Ruby's mum. Apart from Morris asking if the two things might be connected, from the Doctor's point of view, there was no reason to think the two matters may have been, despite the minor quibble. 8 out of 10, best so far.
Cool. Yeah.
And lastly, Paul Graham says, very well paced episode with plenty of answers, but even more questions. Lovely to have Unit back. Was hooked and tense from beginning to end. I guess the Toymaker, the Master, and even Ragnarok, but not Sutek. Did we all join in with the catchphrase? 9.5 pyramids out of 10. Cool. So, some really good scores there, dude. Probably a 7 or an 8. It's probably the average. Probably an 8, to be fair. So, yeah, that was all the scores there. And I think we'll wrap it there, dude, on that high note for episode 402.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much for listening to the Big Blue Box podcast. That was episode 402, and our review of The Legend of Ruby Sunday. So we scored it an 8.5 from Adam and an 8 from me, and then the average score from our listeners was roughly an 8 as well. So a good one as the penultimate episode. We'll see what happens next week. Make sure you give that a watch on whatever format, iPlayer, Disney Plus, whatever, as we do our final review for Empire of Death next week. In the meantime, make sure you are following or subscribing to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, so you won't miss an episode when it lands every Friday. And you can also listen for free on the website as well, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And while you're there, you can check out all of the reviews and articles from the writing team. Plus, you can link off to the socials where we chat Doctor Who throughout the week. So come give us a like and a follow over there. And we have a really cool free Discord server as well. So hop in there and chat Doctor Who with lots of other Who fans. Alongside all the Big Blue Box stuff, make sure that you don't forget to remember to check out my co-host's content on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok.
All the things.
Yeah, everywhere.
Including TikTok. So go and check out Adam's stuff. Loads of cool Doctor Who content there, as well as some other geekery stuff, unboxings, reviews, on-the-spot stuff. It's all there. Go and check out The Geek's Handbag. So until next week, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember...